Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're stepping into something that honestly feels less like current science and more like a prediction from a science fiction novel.
It really
I
does.
mean, a world where we can predict your disease risk years in advance, design custom proteins from scratch, and accelerate vaccine development from what, years down to mere weeks?
It's an incredible reality check.
Yeah.
And this whole shift, this incredible acceleration, it isn't being powered by some new piece of lab equipment. It's all being driven by artificial intelligence. It's rewriting the fundamental rules of life itself.
And to give this deep dive some shape, we're going to use the monumental goal set by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative (CZI) as our measuring stick. Their mission is just so audacious to help cure, prevent, or manage all diseases by the end of this century.
A goal which, just a few years ago would have sounded completely aspirational, pure fantasy almost.
But now it's actually starting to look achievable, and that's all thanks to this emergence of what's being called digital biology.
The scale is what's so compelling. You can't get to a goal like that without a fundamental leap. You have to move beyond that old, painstaking pace of physical experiments and into, well, the exponential speed of digital computation.
So for you, our listener, we're going to unpack exactly what AI is enabling here. We'll look at the most spectacular real-world examples like mapping life's entire instruction manual, and then we have to tackle the critical questions this new power raises for all of us. Okay, so let's start with the old way of doing things. For decades, traditional biology, the wet lab, it was defined by being slow.
So slow, meticulous, and very, very expensive.
Right. And the unwritten rule was basically that to understand life, you had to experiment directly with living matter. You were, stuck with cells in petri dishes, injecting things, and then waiting.
Just waiting for months to see if anything happened.
Yeah.
That process, it meant biological research was always in a race against the sheer complexity of life. The limit wasn't brain power, it was time. Just the physical time it took to do the work.
So when AI comes along, how does it break that limit? It's not just a faster calculator, is it?
Not at all. No. The shift is from just experimenting to simulating everything at a massive scale. The rule that was broken wasn't some law of physics, but it was that practical ceiling on speed.
Okay.
AI lets scientists create what you could call a digital atom. And this isn't just basic computer modeling, that's been around for a while. This is massive computation that can simulate the incredibly complex dynamic interactions of molecules and proteins.
So instead of a researcher in a lab waiting 3 months for one compound to interact with one cell culture.
Exactly. The simulation, the digital atom, does it millions of times in minutes.
Wow.
We are simulating biology at a speed that physical lab work could just never, ever achieve. The AI learns from decades of existing data how molecules interact, how proteins fold, and then it just runs these virtual experiments faster than a human could ever pipette solutions into a tube.
And that speed is the core of digital biology.
That's it.
And I think nothing screams game changer louder than cracking the protein folding problem. This was like the Mount Everest of molecular biology for 50 years.
Oh, absolutely.
So walk us through why proteins are so important and why this problem was so incredibly hard.
So proteins they're basically the workhorses of the cell. They do everything. They transport oxygen, they digest food, they fight off infections. But their function is completely 100% dependent on their final 3D shape.
Right.
A protein starts as this long, stringy chain of amino acids. But to do its job, it has to fold itself into an incredibly specific, complex 3D structure. Figuring out that final shape from just the initial sequence, it was a monster of a calculation. It was considered computationally intractable for decades.
So you needed a new kind of technology to basically solve a 50-year-old riddle.
Exactly. And that technology was DeepMind's AlphaFold, which landed in 2020 as a watershed moment.
What did it do?
By training on the thousands of protein structures we already knew, the ones mapped by those slow, traditional methods, AlphaFold learned the rules. It solved the folding problem with an accuracy that was comparable to, and sometimes even better than, those expensive multi-year lab methods like X-ray crystallography.
So in that moment, we basically got the 3D instruction manual for all of life's machinery.
That's a great way to put it.
And this is where that CZI contribution becomes so critical. They saw the power in democratization.
Absolutely. CZI and Dr. Chan, they didn't see this as some proprietary secret to be guarded. They helped establish the AlphaFold DB, the database, and made all of these predicted structures open and totally free for every scientist in the world.
So that database, It now has over 200 million predicted protein structures.
Hmm.
Let's put that number in perspective for everyone listening. Before AlphaFold, after decades of work, how many structures had we actually mapped?
Maybe a few 100,000.
Yeah.
And each one took a huge amount of money and years of work by a whole team. Now we have 200 million. Practically every known protein in every known organism is just there,
Yeah.
available instantly.
And that access is what's changing everything. It's accelerating research on malaria, on antibiotic resistance.
On designing brand new enzymes. It's what shifts that huge CZI goal from just a dream into an actual viable blueprint for the future.
And we should probably stop here and just validate this point, because I know for a lot of people listening, this still sounds like pure science fiction.
It does, but it's very, very credible science. I
Yeah.
mean, the initial AlphaFold breakthrough was a cover story for Nature. That's like the highest seal of approval in science.
Okay.
And beyond that, the journal Science named the use of these kinds of AI models in biology as their advance of the year for 2023.
Right.
So no, this is not just lab hype. This is the verified foundation for the next generation of medicine.
So if we have the protein map, where are researchers taking this new instruction manual? What's in this application zoo that's popping up?
Well, you can start with the patient experience, with genomics. Imagine a child with a rare disease and their family goes on what they call a diagnostic odyssey. Years of tests, confusion, no answers.
Mm-hmm.
AI is now becoming the genomic detective that can end that search. It analyzes the patient's entire genome, compares it against millions of data points, and it can pinpoint the specific, often very subtle, genetic variant that's causing the problem.
So it turns a blind search in a haystack process into a directed investigation.
In a matter of weeks, not years.
And then in drug discovery, I've heard it described as a digital alchemist. Traditionally, you just test thousands of compounds randomly, right? Hoping one would work.
Right, hoping one would stick to the disease protein.
Mm-hmm.
Now, AI designs the molecule. Instead of random screening, these AI models work completely in silico on the computer to design a new chemical compound that's specifically optimized to bind to the 3D target structure, which we now know thanks to AlphaFold.
So companies can immediately focus on only the most promising candidates. But wait, okay, if that design phase is now so fast, months instead of years, why does bringing a drug to market still take a decade? Is the bottleneck just physical now?
That's a really crucial point.
Eh.
And yes, the bottleneck shifts. AI can slash years off the discovery phase, but the vast majority of time is still spent on mandatory, physical, regulated clinical trials, testing for safety and efficacy in actual humans.
Of course.
But even just by shortening that initial discovery phase, companies like Atomwise, which are using AI for things like multiple sclerosis, they're saving billions and focusing their resources where it matters most.
And that focus on individual data, that brings us to predictive medicine, the medical crystal ball.
And this, I think, is maybe the most profound shift for the average person. By combining data from your unique genome, your clinical history, lifestyle data, AI models can create these incredibly accurate individual risk profiles.
So it's the core of that CZI goal of prevention. The doctor isn't just waiting for you to get sick.
Precisely. We are shifting from you have it, let's treat the damage, to you have a high probability of developing this condition in 10 years, so let's start preventative measures right now.
Whether that's lifestyle changes, special screenings, whatever it might be.
Exactly. It's a total shift from reactive to proactive care.
What's so fascinating to me is how this is changing the language of science. We've basically merged two different worlds. The world of atoms, our physical bodies, and the world of bits, data and AI.
The role of the scientist is evolving so fast. The future biologist, the future physician, they won't just be an expert with pipettes. They'll have to be a digital bioengineer, fluent in data science, machine learning.
It's a partnership.
It is. It's a partnership that lets them see the invisible and calculate the incalculable. I mean, AI is giving biologists computational superpowers. It's turning biology into a true information science.
And with great power comes great responsibility and new dilemmas. If we can design biology, we have to talk about where we draw the line.
We do. We have to start with the black box problem. What happens when an AI gives you an answer, but it can't show its work?
Right. So an AI tells a doctor a patient has a very aggressive cancer and recommends a really radical treatment. The doctor has to know why. Right?
They have to. In medicine, the stakes are literally life and death. You need to be able to explain the reasoning for patient trust, for legal liability, for basic scientific verification. If we don't understand the why, we can't truly trust the result when the life is on the line. We need to be pushing much harder for explainable AI in medicine.
And then there's the other side of this, the psychological challenge of what some are calling hyper-personalization. We're heading towards a world where you could find out you have an 85% risk of developing some terrible disease.
A disease for which there is currently no cure.
Exactly.
And that knowledge, that carries a massive, massive anxiety load. How do we as a society manage the mental health side of knowing our precise vulnerabilities? This medical crystal ball, it gives us power, but it also creates this profound psychological pressure.
It's a really delicate balance. On one hand, you have this amazing open collaboration, like with CZI and the AlphaFold database, giving scientists superpowers and speeding up cures.
Right.
But on the other, we're moving so much faster than our social and our psychological structures can really adapt.
Absolutely. The impossible is becoming inevitable. The pace is just breathtaking. This is the moment where digital precision is defining the future of our health.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought to consider as you reflect on this deep dive. As we gain mastery over the source code of life itself, are we ready as a species to handle the immense responsibility that comes with that power?
It's a profound question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Until next time, stay curious.